Welcome to Treasure Mint Lab. This Eisenhower dollar looks ordinary at first, but one tiny detail could reveal why collectors study it so closely. First coin. At first glance, the 1977 United States Eisenhower dollar can look like nothing more than a large, familiar piece of pocket change from America's final years with the Ike dollar series. But this coin has a story that becomes far more interesting when you look closely at its surfaces, its mint mark, its strike, and the circumstances surrounding its production. Millions were made, yet truly exceptional examples are surprisingly difficult to find, especially coins that have survived with blazing luster, sharply defined details, and virtually no contact marks. Some collectors search through old accumulations, hoping to locate overlooked high-grade pieces or unusual varieties, while others pursue certified examples that have already been authenticated and professionally graded. Later in this story, we'll examine what authenticated examples have brought in the collector market and why two 1977 Eisenhower dollars that appear nearly identical at first can have dramatically different values. The answer is not simply the date. It lies in a combination of origin, preservation, technical quality, rarity at the highest grade levels, and the details that separate an ordinary survivor from a coin collectors compete to own. The Eisenhower dollar was created as a tribute to President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who died in 1969, and to commemorate America's triumph in the Apollo 11 moon landing, one of the defining events of the 20th century. Congress authorized the new dollar in 1970, and the first coins were struck in 1971, making the Eisenhower dollar the first circulating United States dollar coin produced since the Peace Dollar series ended in 1935. The coin entered circulation during a period of inflation, economic uncertainty, energy concerns, and major changes in the American monetary system. By 1977, however, the Eisenhower dollar was approaching the end of its relatively short life. Americans generally found the large, heavy dollar inconvenient for everyday transactions, and many coins remained in banks, casinos, collections, and government storage rather than circulating extensively. That unusual circulation history matters enormously today. A 1977 dollar may not be rare in an absolute sense, but finding one with the pristine appearance of a freshly struck coin is a very different challenge. The series would end after the 1978 issue, giving the 1977 coin a place near the closing chapter of America's last large-size circulating dollar. The 1977 Eisenhower dollar was struck for circulation at Philadelphia and Denver. Philadelphia coins from this period generally carry no mint mark, while Denver examples display a small D on the obverse. The mint mark appears above and slightly to the left of the final digit in the date area, beneath Eisenhower's neck. This detail is one of the first things collectors inspect because the Philadelphia and Denver issues had different production totals and can behave differently in the marketplace, particularly in elite grades. The coin is composed of a copper core clad with outer layers of copper nickel, giving it the familiar silvery appearance associated with modern American clad coinage. It weighs 22.68 grams, measures 38.1 millimeters in diameter, has a reeded edge, and is substantially larger than the dollar coins that followed it. These dimensions give the Eisenhower dollar an unmistakable presence in the hand. Its large planchet also created a challenge for the mint. Producing a coin with a strong, even strike across such a broad surface required considerable pressure and careful die preparation, and small differences in production quality can become important when a collector or grading service evaluates a coin decades later. The obverse was designed by Frank Gasparo, the United States Mint's chief engraver, and features a left-facing portrait of President Eisenhower. Liberty appears above the portrait. In God We Trust is divided across the obverse, and the date 1977 is positioned below. Gasparo's initials, FG, can be found near the truncation of Eisenhower's bust. The reverse is equally important to the coin's identity because it is based on the Apollo 11 insignia and presents an American bald eagle descending toward the lunar surface while holding an olive branch. Earth appears in the distance, creating one of the most memorable reverse designs ever used on a modern United States circulating coin. Around the design are the inscriptions United States of America, $1, EPLUBUS UNUM, and the stars surrounding the reverse. On a sharply struck 1977 example, the eagle's feathers, the lunar surface, the olive branch, and the lettering can show impressive definition. On weaker strikes, some of these areas may appear softer. Collectors examining mint state coins therefore look beyond whether a piece is simply uncirculated and study the actual quality of the strike, the luster, the number and severity of contact marks, and the overall visual appeal. Mintage figures show why collectors must distinguish between ordinary availability and condition rarity. The Philadelphia Mint produced roughly 12.6 million circulation strike Eisenhower dollars dated 1977, while Denver struck roughly 32.9 million. Those are substantial numbers, and because many Eisenhower dollars were saved in original quantities, neither regular issue should automatically be considered rare merely because it is almost 50 years old. A typical circulated example may have modest collector value, often tied more closely to its condition and silver-free clad composition than to scarcity. The picture changes as preservation improves. Coins that remained in bags and bank storage could receive numerous marks when the heavy dollars struck against one another, so a technically mint state coin can still have distracting abrasions on Eisenhower's cheek, the fields, or the eagle. At the highest certified grades, the surviving population becomes far more selective. A beautifully preserved 1977 dollar with exceptional luster, minimal marks, strong design detail, and an elite grade can command serious attention. Depending on the exact mint, certification, grade, and eye appeal, authenticated high-end examples can move into collector price levels around $1,350, $2,650, or even higher, while extraordinary registry quality pieces may bring substantially stronger results when multiple advanced collectors compete. The most exciting discoveries in this series are not necessarily ordinary coins that happen to be old, but pieces showing unusual characteristics that can be verified as genuine mint-made varieties or errors. Collectors examine Eisenhower dollars for double dies, repunched mint marks where applicable to the period and variety attribution, die clashes, retained cuds, struck-through errors, off-center strikes, broad strikes, planchet abnormalities, and other production mistakes. However, damage occurring after the coin left the mint must never be confused with a genuine error. Scratches, dents, artificial alterations, heat damage, and tooling can create misleading appearances. Authentication becomes especially important when a coin seems unusual or potentially valuable. Professional grading services can examine whether the surfaces are original, whether an apparent doubling is a recognized variety rather than machine doubling, and whether the piece has been altered. For regular 1977 business strikes, collectors should also understand that the familiar color terminology used for copper coins, such as red, red-brown, and brown does not apply in the same way to copper-nickel-clad Eisenhower dollars. Instead, specialists focus on original luster, surface quality, tunning, brilliance, and overall eye appeal. Natural tunning can sometimes enhance desirability, while unattractive artificial tunning or improper cleaning can significantly reduce a coin's appeal and value. Professional grading is particularly important because the difference between one mint state grade and the next can represent a major change in rarity. A coin graded around MS60 to MS63 may be uncirculated but still display noticeable bag marks or impaired visual quality. Higher levels such as MS65, MS66, and beyond demand progressively cleaner surfaces and stronger overall presentation. At the very top of the grading scale, tiny differences become decisive. Collectors and grading specialists inspect Eisenhower's cheek and jaw, the open fields, the high points of the hair, and prominent reverse areas for marks that would prevent an elite grade. Strike quality matters as well. A coin can have relatively few marks, but still lack the crispness expected by demanding collectors. Certified population data also influences market value because a grade that is common today may be scarce at a higher level. This is why auction records must be interpreted carefully. A spectacular sale involving an authenticated 1977 Eisenhower dollar does not mean every coin with the same date is valuable at that level. Exceptional prices are normally associated with verified top population grades, unusually attractive surfaces, recognized varieties, or genuine errors. In contrast, many ordinary circulated or lower-end uncirculated examples trade for far less, making professional identification essential before assigning a major value to any individual coin. For collectors who own a 1977 Eisenhower dollar, preservation can be just as important as identification. The safest approach is to handle the coin only by its edges and avoid rubbing the obverse or reverse with fingers, cloth, polish, or chemical cleaners. Cleaning can leave hairlines, alter the original surfaces, and permanently reduce collector desirability, even when a coin initially appears brighter afterward. A properly sized inert coin holder, archival quality flip, capsule, or certified slab can help protect the large surfaces from new contact marks. Coins should be stored in a stable, dry environment away from excessive humidity, heat, and materials containing harmful chemicals. Before submitting a potentially valuable example for professional grading, collectors should compare it carefully with reliable diagnostics and consider having it examined by an experienced numismatist. The 1977 Eisenhower dollar remains a fascinating reminder of an era when the United States still attempted to keep a large dollar coin in everyday use, and its real appeal lies in the details. Millions may have been struck, but collector value is determined one coin at a time. Authenticity, mint origin, surface preservation, strike quality, certified grade, recognized varieties, genuine mint errors, and current demand can transform the significance of an individual piece. The most important lesson is simple. Never judge the potential value of a 1977 Eisenhower dollar by its date alone, because the finest and most unusual survivors tell a very different story from the ordinary coins that once passed unnoticed through American hands. Next coin. Few American coins carry the weight of a national celebration as dramatically as the 1976 bicentennial Eisenhower dollar. Its unusual dual date immediately tells collectors that this is not an ordinary dollar coin, but a piece created to mark 2 centuries of American independence. On one side is the familiar profile of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, while the other presents an image, unlike any regular Eisenhower dollar, the Liberty Bell rising in front of the moon. Millions of these coins were produced, and for decades, many Americans saved them simply because they looked special. Yet the passage of time has revealed an important distinction between a common bicentennial dollar and an exceptional one. The mint that produced it, the metal used, the reverse variety, the quality of the strike, the originality of its surfaces, and its certified grade can all change the way collectors view the same dual-dated coin. Some surviving pieces remain affordable historical souvenirs, while a much smaller number have become serious condition rarities pursued by advanced collectors. As this story unfolds, the difference between those categories becomes crucial, because later we will examine what factors determine collector value and what exceptional authenticated examples have actually brought in the marketplace. The real mystery of this famous dollar is not whether every example is valuable, but how to recognize the characteristics that can make one survivor stand far above another. The story began as the United States approached its bicentennial in 1976, a moment when the country was preparing for one of the largest national commemorations in its history. Congress authorized special designs for the quarter, half dollar, and dollar, creating circulating coins that would visibly mark the 200th anniversary of American independence. The Eisenhower dollar had already been in production since 1971, created after the death of President Eisenhower and inspired in part by the Apollo 11 mission, but the bicentennial celebration gave the series a completely new reverse. There would be no Eisenhower dollars dated 1975. Instead, coins intended for the bicentennial celebration carried the combined date 1776-1976. Production of these special coins began before the anniversary itself, with bicentennial pieces struck during 1975 and 1976. The nation celebrating its 200th birthday was also living through a difficult economic period marked by the lingering effects of inflation, energy problems, and the broader economic uncertainty that followed the 1973–1975 recession. Against that background, the bicentennial coinage offered something deliberately optimistic and patriotic. These were coins designed not merely for collectors, but for the American public, physical reminders of the country's revolutionary origins appearing in banks, cash registers, casinos, collections, and souvenir sets across the nation. The familiar obverse retained the portrait created by Frank Gasparo, the United States Mint's chief engraver and the designer of the original Eisenhower dollar. Eisenhower faces left beneath the word liberty, with "In God We Trust" positioned across the field, and the historic dual date 1776–1976 below. The portrait honored a former president, five-star general, and one of the Central American figures of the 20th century, creating an interesting bridge between the founding era and modern history. The reverse, however, was the true bicentennial transformation. Its design came from Dennis R. Williams, whose winning artwork placed the Liberty Bell against the moon. The symbolism was deliberate and powerful. The Liberty Bell represented the American Revolution and the struggle for independence, while the moon connected the coin to the space-age identity already associated with the Eisenhower dollar through the Apollo 11-inspired regular reverse. The combination joined 1776 and the 20th century in a single image. United States of America surrounds the design, while EPLUBUSUNUM and $1 complete the inscriptions. The large size of the Eisenhower dollar made this reverse especially dramatic, giving Williams enough room to create an image that remains instantly recognizable to collectors. It was a national commemorative design placed on a coin intended to circulate, and that unusual combination remains one of the reasons the bicentennial Ike dollar has such lasting appeal. Physically, the standard circulating bicentennial Eisenhower dollar is a substantial coin, measuring 38.1 millimeters in diameter and weighing 22.68 grams, with a reeded edge. The regular Philadelphia and Denver business strikes are copper-nickel clad, built around a pure copper core with outer layers of copper-nickel alloy. Special San Francisco issues were also produced in collector formats, including copper-nickel clad proofs and 40% silver-clad collector coins. That difference in composition is essential because a coin's appearance alone does not always reveal which version it is. The San Francisco silver-clad issues were sold specifically to collectors, while the regular Philadelphia and Denver pieces were intended for circulation. The mintage picture is equally complex because the bicentennial series exists in two principal reverse design styles. Type 1 coins display bold, thick lettering on the reverse, while Type 2 coins have narrower, more refined lettering. According to major numismatic references, Philadelphia produced approximately 4.019 million Type 1 copper-nickel business strikes and 113.318 million Type 2 pieces, while Denver struck approximately 21.049 million Type 1 coins and 82.18 million Type 2 coins. The San Francisco collector issues included clad proofs in both styles and silver-clad collector versions, although later melting reduced the number of silver coins believed to survive. These enormous production totals explain why the date itself does not automatically create rarity, but the different varieties and surviving condition levels create a far more complicated collecting landscape. The Type 1 and Type 2 distinction is one of the first major details a serious collector should understand. On Type 1 business strikes, the reverse lettering is visibly broader and heavier, giving the inscriptions a more crowded appearance. The Type 2 redesign introduced thinner, sharper lettering, and it became the overwhelmingly more common style among the later circulation strikes. This makes the lower mintage Type 1 Philadelphia issue particularly interesting to collectors, although lower mintage alone does not guarantee a major price. Condition remains decisive. The large size and heavy weight of the Eisenhower dollar created a problem that is immediately visible on many surviving mint state coins, bag marks. Freshly struck dollars were stored and transporting in quantity, allowing the coins to collide with one another and leave marks across the open fields and high points of the design. As a result, an uncirculated coin may still look surprisingly battered. The best examples display strong original luster, relatively clean fields, limited contact marks, and a crisp strike that brings out the details of Eisenhower's hair and the Liberty Bell reverse. Color designations such as red, red-brown, and brown are not standard classifications for these copper-nickel-clad dollars in the way they are for copper cents. Instead, collectors focus on brilliance, original mint luster, attractive natural toning, and overall eye appeal. A coin with exceptional surfaces can be dramatically more desirable than an ordinary example of the same variety, which is why professional grading can separate a modest collectible from a genuine condition rarity. That difference becomes clearer when the grading scale enters the picture. A mint state grade does not simply mean that a bicentennial dollar has never circulated. The numerical grade reflects the quality of its surviving surfaces, the severity and location of contact marks, the quality of the strike, and the coin's overall appearance. An MS-63 example may be uncirculated but show noticeable abrasions, while MS-65 and higher grades require progressively cleaner and more attractive surfaces. At the elite end of the scale, the population of surviving coins becomes much more selective. A Philadelphia Type II, for example, is extremely common in ordinary condition but far scarcer in the highest certified grades. NGC's published guide illustrates this dramatic gap, showing modest values through much of the mint state range, but substantially higher figures for exceptional certified pieces, with elite-grade examples reaching into the four-figure range. That does not mean an average bicentennial dollar is worth thousands of dollars. It means a coin's exact grade and certification can completely change the market. A superbly preserved, authenticated example might attract competition around $1,150, while a scarcer top-grade piece with extraordinary surfaces could approach $2,780 or more depending on the variety and current demand. Such figures must always be connected to the specific certified coin being sold. Authentication, grade, originality, eye appeal, rarity at that grade, and collector competition all matter, and a price realized by one exceptional example should never be transferred automatically to every coin bearing the same dual date. Beyond normal condition rarity, collectors also examine bicentennial Eisenhower dollars for genuine mint-made errors and unusual production characteristics. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, struck-through errors, planchet problems, die breaks, and other documented minting anomalies can attract substantial interest when they are unquestionably authentic. The key word is unquestionably. A damaged coin is not automatically a mint error. Scratches made after circulation, artificial alterations, filing, plating, chemical treatment, heat damage, and other forms of post-mint damage can create appearances that inexperienced collectors mistake for rare varieties. The same caution applies to doubling. Not every blurred letter is evidence of a valuable doubled die. Professional attribution may be necessary when a coin appears to show a significant variety. Authentication also protects buyers from altered or counterfeit pieces. Collectors should compare the weight, diameter, edge, metal appearance, mint mark style, and design details with known genuine examples, but a home inspection cannot replace expert examination when serious money is involved. Certified coins in holders from respected third-party grading services provide an additional level of confidence regarding authenticity and grade, though collectors should still verify certification numbers and holder integrity. Extraordinary auction results should be interpreted with particular care. When a bicentennial Eisenhower dollar brings an unusually strong price, the reason is typically an authenticated top population grade, a recognized rare variety, a dramatic genuine mint error, an exceptional proof-like presentation, or an unusually desirable silver issue, not the dual date alone. Major grading and auction references provide evidence for variety and auction research, but no responsible evaluation should invent a record sale when reliable documentation is unavailable. The enduring strength of the 1976 bicentennial Eisenhower dollar lies in the way history and collecting intersect on one large piece of metal. It represents the final years of the Eisenhower dollar series, the nation's bicentennial celebration, the memory of the American Revolution, the legacy of Dwight Eisenhower, and the space-age imagery that had defined the original dollar's reverse. Millions were preserved, which means collectors can still enter the series without extraordinary expense, but that accessibility has not prevented specialists from competing intensely for the finest survivors. A heavily circulated clad example may remain a modest collectible, while a scarce Type 1 in exceptional preservation, a top-certified Type 2, a premium silver-clad issue, or a dramatic authenticated mint era can occupy an entirely different market. Depending on exactly what has been certified and documented, serious collector pieces may command figures such as $1,875 or $3,420, and truly exceptional examples can exceed ordinary expectations when rarity and demand converge. Those values are not promises and should never be treated as guarantees. Coin markets change, populations change as new pieces are submitted for grading, and individual eye appeal can influence competitive bidding. For preservation, collectors should handle the dollar only by its edge, avoid cleaning or polishing it, and store it in inert archival quality holders away from humidity, heat, and chemically reactive materials. Before spending significant money or assuming a coin is rare, verify the variety, composition, weight, and certification through reliable numismatic sources or a qualified professional. Nearly 2.5 centuries after 1776, the bicentennial Eisenhower dollar continues to fascinate collectors because it is more than an old dollar. It is a surviving piece of America's 200th birthday, and its greatest stories are found not in the date alone, but in the details each individual coin has preserved. Last coin at first, a 1972 Eisenhower dollar, can seem almost too ordinary to deserve an investigation. It is large, heavy, and unmistakably American, with a familiar presidential portrait on one side and an eagle descending toward the moon on the other. Yet experienced collectors know that the date 1972 can hide one of the most important secrets in the entire Eisenhower dollar series, a difference so subtle that many people never notice it while examining the coin. $2 can carry the same date, have the same basic appearance, and even come from the same mint, yet one may attract far greater attention because of a small detail in the design of the Earth on the reverse. That is why the first step is not to assume anything. Look at the date, look for a mint mark, study the eagle, the moon, and especially the tiny Earth above the eagle's head. Then examine the surfaces and ask whether the coin is genuinely uncirculated, unusually well struck, or showing evidence of an important variety. As we follow this investigation, the reasons behind the 1972 Eisenhower dollar's reputation will become clearer, including why certain authenticated examples are highly desirable, and why a small number have achieved impressive results when rarity, condition, originality, and collector demand come together. The Eisenhower dollar itself was born during a remarkable period in American history. President Dwight D. Eisenhower had died in March 1969, and Congress authorized a new dollar bearing his portrait as a tribute to the former president and five-star general. The coin also carried another layer of symbolism, America's achievement in space. The original reverse showed an eagle approaching the lunar surface, adapted from the Apollo 11 mission insignia and connected to the nation's successful moon landing in 1969. The first Eisenhower dollars entered production in 1971, making the series the first regular United States dollar coin struck since the peace dollar ended in 1935. By 1972, the country was facing an uncertain economic environment. Inflation and broader economic pressures were becoming increasingly important issues, and the United States had recently experienced major changes in its monetary system after the end of the direct convertibility of the dollar into gold in 1971. Despite the historical importance of the new large dollar, Americans did not embrace it as enthusiastically for everyday commerce as the mint may have hoped. The coin was bulky and heavy, and many examples spent more time in bank storage, casinos, vending operations, or private collections than in ordinary pocket circulation. That unusual history would later become important because survival alone does not make a 1972 Eisenhower dollar rare. The specific version, condition, and quality of an individual coin are what collectors investigate. Now the physical examination becomes more precise. A regular 1972 circulation strike Eisenhower dollar was produced at Philadelphia or Denver, with Philadelphia examples carrying no mint mark and Denver examples displaying a D on the obverse. The standard copper-nickel-clad version weighs 22.68 grams, measures 38.1 millimeters in diameter, and has a reeded edge. Its construction consists of outer layers of copper-nickel bonded to a copper core, which can sometimes be seen as a copper-colored band along the edge. San Francisco produced special 40% silver collector issues rather than regular circulation strikes, and those pieces carry an S mint mark. The silver-clad collector coins differ physically from the copper-nickel circulation issues, weighing 24.6 grams and using outer layers of 80% silver and 20% copper surrounding a core containing mostly copper with silver. The 1972 S silver proof had a mintage of 1,811,631 pieces, according to PCGS Coin Facts. This means the first serious question for any 1972 EIC is simple but essential. Exactly which coin is it? A Philadelphia circulation strike, a Denver circulation strike, a San Francisco silver uncirculated issue, or a San Francisco silver proof? Each belongs to a different collecting category. Weight, edge appearance, mint mark, surface finish, and original packaging can all provide clues, but a potentially valuable example should be professionally authenticated rather than identified by appearance alone. The design itself rewards close observation. Frank Gasparo created the obverse portrait of Eisenhower, showing the president facing left beneath the word liberty, while In God We Trust stretches across the field, and the date 1972 appears below. Gasparo's initials can be found near the truncation of the portrait. The reverse features an eagle descending toward the lunar surface while carrying an olive branch, with the Earth visible above. The design was adapted from the Apollo 11 mission insignia created by astronaut Michael Collins, with James Cooper also associated with the mission patch artwork that inspired the reverse. The eagle represents American strength, while the olive branch introduces a deliberate message of peace. The lunar landscape and distant Earth connect the coin to the space program and one of America's greatest technological achievements. But on a 1972 Philadelphia dollar, the Earth is more than decoration. It is the key to one of the most famous variety investigations in modern U.S. numismatics. Collectors recognize three principal reverse hub styles, commonly called Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3. The scarce Type 2 reverse is particularly important because the Earth appears more rounded, and the islands beneath Florida are indistinct or absent. PCGS notes that only a small percentage of Philadelphia's enormous 75,890,000 piece mintage used this reverse style. No separate official mintage figure exists for the individual reverse types, which makes direct identification far more important than simply knowing the total number of 1972 Philadelphia dollars produced. That discovery changes the way an experienced collector examines a 1972 Eisenhower dollar. Instead of stopping after reading the date, the investigator studies the tiny globe on the reverse with magnification. The Type 1 reverse has a different island configuration, while the scarce Type 2 is distinguished by its unusually rounded Earth and the absence or indistinct appearance of the islands below Florida. Type 3, the later and much more common hub style, has its own recognizable island pattern. The differences are small enough that a casual observer can easily miss them, but the marketplace does not treat every variety equally. This is also where condition begins to matter. A rare variety with heavy circulation where can still be collectible because the variety itself carries significance, while a common variety may need extraordinary preservation to command serious money. Collectors inspect Eisenhower's cheek, jaw, hair, and the open fields for contact marks. On the reverse, they study the eagle's feathers, the moon's surface, and the lettering for strike quality. Original mint luster is another major factor. A brilliant, undisturbed surface can be far more desirable than a coin that has been cleaned or polished. Unlike copper cents, Eisenhower dollars are not normally assigned red, red-brown, or brown color designations. Instead, specialists evaluate the originality of the clad or silver surfaces, natural tunning, brilliance, reflectivity where applicable, and overall eye appeal. Large dollars were especially vulnerable to bag marks because freshly struck coins could collide during storage and transportation, so finding an example with unusually clean surfaces can be much harder than simply finding an uncirculated one. Professional grading helps explain why two coins that both appear untouched can receive very different evaluations. A mint state grade generally indicates that a circulation strike shows no wear from actual use, but grades within the mint state range reflect the severity of marks, surface preservation, luster, strike, and eye appeal. An MS-63 coin can be uncirculated while still showing obvious contact marks. At MS-65, collectors expect noticeably cleaner surfaces and stronger visual quality, and the requirements become increasingly demanding at MS-66 and above. For the 1972 Type II reverse, population rarity and condition rarity can combine in a powerful way. A PCGS-certified MS-65 Type II has sold at auction for $1,440, while another MS-65 example brought $1,680, demonstrating how certified examples of the scarce variety can move well beyond ordinary Eisenhower dollar prices. A different MS-65 Type II sold for $1,620, and an MS-65 Plus example has been associated with a PCGS guide value of $2,500, illustrating the premium that can emerge when the same scarce variety survives in superior condition. These numbers do not apply to every 1972 dollar. They belong to specific authenticated coins with documented varieties and grades. Authentication, certification, originality, eye appeal, and the number of finer examples known to collectors can all influence the result. The investigation becomes even more serious at the top of the condition census. A coin can be rare because few were made, but it can also be rare because very few survived in an exceptional state. The 1972 Type II Eisenhower dollar demonstrates both concepts at once. The reverse itself is scarce within a huge Philadelphia mintage, and superbly preserved examples are much harder to locate than ordinary circulated or bag-marked pieces. A PCGS-certified MS-66 Type II sold for $6,600 in a November 2024 Stack's Bowers auction, a result that dramatically exceeds the range of ordinary collector examples. An even more extraordinary PCGS MS-66 Plus example with CAC approval and attractive tunning reportedly sold for $15,862.50. That exceptional result reflected a very specific coin with elite certification, a scarce variety, unusually high preservation, and premium market attributes. It should never be interpreted as the value of every 1972 Eisenhower dollar. The same principle applies to the 1972 silver proof. Most examples are collectible rather than rare in an absolute sense, but perfection-level certification can create a completely different market. PCGS records an auction result of $4,715 for a PR-70 deep cameo example. These auction histories reveal the central lesson of the series. The date opens the investigation, but the variety, composition, grade, surface quality, and certification determine how far the investigation can go. Not every valuable-looking 1972 Eisenhower dollar is genuinely rare, and this is where careful authentication protects collectors. The series can contain legitimate mint errors and recognized die varieties, but scratches, dents, plating experiments, chemical damage, artificial tunning, altered surfaces, and post-mint damage can all be mistaken for valuable production mistakes. A genuine off-center strike, struck-through error, planchet anomaly, or other documented mint error must show characteristics consistent with the manufacturing process, not simply an unusual appearance. The 1972 S-Proof series also includes recognized double-die obverse attributions, including FS101, but a blurry letter alone is not enough to prove a double die. professional attribution may be necessary. Counterfeit awareness is equally important for coins carrying substantial premiums. Collectors should compare the weight, diameter, edge reads, mint mark, design details, and metal characteristics with reliable references. A standard-clad coin that does not match the expected weight may deserve further examination, while an apparently silver piece should be evaluated with appropriate non-destructive methods and expert assistance. Certification holders should also be checked for authenticity and valid certification numbers. The safest approach is not to clean the coin, not to scrape it, and not to perform destructive tests. Cleaning can leave hairlines and permanently reduce collector appeal, sometimes destroying much of the premium attached to a high-grade coin before it is ever submitted for professional grading. By the end of the examination, the 1972 Eisenhower Dollar reveals why it occupies such an unusual position in American numismatics. It is simultaneously a historical tribute to Dwight Eisenhower, a memorial to America's Apollo-era ambitions, a product of the economic and monetary changes of the early 1970s, and one of the most important modern US dollar coins for variety collectors. Philadelphia and Denver business strikes entered the collecting world through circulation and storage, while San Francisco produced special 40% silver issues specifically for collectors. The enormous standard Philadelphia mintage makes an ordinary 1972 dollar relatively accessible, but the scarce Type II reverse proves that an important variety can be hidden within a massive production total. Current demand remains strongest for coins that combine recognized varieties with exceptional preservation, original luster, attractive natural surfaces, elite grades, or significant errors authenticated by respected services. Long-term collectability is supported by the coin's historical story, its large and distinctive design, and the continuing challenge of distinguishing ordinary examples from the genuinely important ones. For preservation, handle the coin only by its edge and store it in an inert archival quality holder or capsule away from humidity, extreme temperatures, and reactive materials. Before assigning a major value, verify the date, mint mark, reverse type, weight, composition, surface condition, and certification. The most fascinating 1972 Eisenhower dollars are not valuable because they simply say 1972. They become important because close observation reveals something that most people never see.